Alright guys, before we get into today's upload, I just want to let everyone know that my throat is raw like you can hear right now. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I've burnt myself out. But I apologize for the way my voice sounds in this upload. Thank you for understanding. Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have an assortment of terrifying subscriber encounters to share with you. Before we get into those encounters, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? I had something else planned for today. I was going to have Victor on, but he got caught up with some other stuff. Little health issue. And so I decided, instead of going to the undisclosed location subscriber encounters, that I was going to go to the new folder of subscriber encounters that have just been submitted. So these are brand new to the channel from subscribers, and I hope you guys enjoy them. Today's first subscriber submission. Hello Jeff, I'm finally going to share with you my encounters. I am not an English professor, so you'll find a lot of punctuation mistakes. This happened probably 7 years ago. It was me, my boyfriend, and my 3 children. We were camping at a campsite that's about 9 miles from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, in a little town called Keys. It was out at the lake. We had decided to go camping, and by the time we got there, it was 9 at night or so. I'd hurried up and fixed dinner and got the kids ready, got them to bed. At around 11 p.m., me and my boyfriend, we were in the tent, and we had what was called a drop light or a drop cord light. It's just a light on a cord that you hang up in a tree or hang wherever you want to. So we had it up for the kids' sake, so if they got up to go to the bathroom or anything like that. Anyway, the kids were asleep, and all of a sudden my boyfriend kind of slowly stands on his knees in the tent. I was talking to him and he said, "Be quiet, be quiet. I hear something." So I thought it was a trick. How do I know? Okay, let's go to sleep, because no, I hear something walking. He said, "It's not a man." How do you know? He said, "Walking was too heavy." So I said, "Okay, what is it?" Because I can't see, and all of a sudden his eyes got really big. "What is it?" He says, "I'm not going to tell you." I said, "Why are you not going to tell me what it is?" "I'm just not going to tell you." It was hard to get up, and he pushed me back down. "What the hell is that thing? Is it a bear?" "No, it's not. I don't think." "The hell is it? Bigfoot? Dogman?" And I was just joking. I didn't mean no seriousness at the time. And all of a sudden, Ben, which is my boyfriend's name, went down real slow. He said, "You need to stay down also." "What is it?" And he said, "You need to be quiet." "You tell me what the hell it is. Is it a werewolf?" "I don't know. Something that you've been talking about quite a bit. You know, all the time. Goddamn werewolf." So I said, "I didn't think you believed in these things." He said, "Oh, I do now." So we're lying there, and he says, "You need to be quiet." And by that time, I heard it. I heard it start walking, and we had a Suburban at the time. We had it parked beside the campsite. I heard something on the other side of it and said, "Is that it?" And I had started sweating, and I started shaking, and you could just feel it in the air that something was not right. So I'm listening, and I start trying to come up off of the bed, And Ben lays down on me and he says, "No, you need to stay still. You just need to lie down. Be quiet." So I start bawling because my kids are out there. And if this thing is a werewolf or well, I got reason to be scared because my kids' camp is arranged and we are in like a horseshoe pattern around the campsite. And it started with me and Ben, then my daughter's tent, then my twins' tent. And they wanted to be off at the end. They were little. They were like 11 and 12. And my daughter was like 14 or 15. So we're sitting there and I was telling him that I've already heard this. And the only thing that I can figure out is that it's walking. And it was making these chuck chuck sounds with its feet. I could feel it shaking. And I was still trying to get up when I heard it stop next to the tent. I looked at the tent wall and I could see its shadow shining through because the light was behind it. All of a sudden I saw it turn and I couldn't tell which way it was. I can just see it sideways. And it walked to the tent and looked in. I almost screamed, but Ben put his hand over my mouth and said no. So I just looked up and saw it. I saw its side of its face. I really didn't see the front of it because at the time it was turned. Its head was turned sideways, so I closed my eyes really fast. My heart, I felt like I was having a heart attack. I was sweating more. I started shaking. I couldn't control it. I guess he got tired looking at us, so he turned around and started towards my daughter's tent. I started freaking out because, of course, that's my baby there. And I was trying to get up again, and Ben was still lying on me, so I couldn't move. Finally, he let me up, and I picked up the top of the tent. Or whatever you want to call it, because the rain guard wasn't on, so it was just the screen, I'm looking at this thing walking towards my daughter's tent. I watched in horror as this thing bent over my daughter's tent and looked in. All I can think is, please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Because I knew if she saw it, she would totally lose it. And then I heard a kind of grunt. Not a growl, kind of a grunt. And I watched it stand up and then walked down to my twins' camp and looked in. We brought 2 little puppies with us, and they were in the twins' tent. So when I saw it look in their tent, I went, all I can do is pray that it did not wake those puppies up. Thankfully, it didn't. I was so relieved when I saw it stand up and walk toward our camp where our ice chest and food were. I wanted to run out right then and there and grab my kids. Lucky none of them woke up. I knew I couldn't because this thing was still out there. So I'm watching it, and Ben got up and was watching as well. This thing was walking on its hind legs the whole time. I never saw it get down onto its front legs. I don't recall a tail either. It must have decided that it wasn't interested in our camping stuff. So I'm watching it. It starts walking towards another campsite. So I started to unzip the tent so I could get the kids, and Ben stops me. He said, "Hold on a minute, let's see what happens." I said, "See what it does? My kids are out there. I need to get them." He said, "No, wait a minute. If it comes back, I'll go and get them. But if it doesn't, let's just see what it does." So we're watching as this thing gets down on all fours and starts walking away. About that time, it perked its ears up and started looking down to where the boat ramp is. So it sat there for about 5 seconds and then it took off. When it did, I mean took off. I could see the back of it, and its color was like a gray with a black stripe down its back, like a reverse skunk type thing. Or I guess it'd be gray with white lines. It was gray with a black stripe all the way down its back. Its coat had a beautiful sheen. I remember what the eyes looked like. They were amber colored. It had tufts on the end of its ears. So when it took off, I took off out of the tent to get my kids. Ben ran to the Suburban and jumped in and started it up, and we loaded the kids up. About that time, I heard this lonesome growl. It was a noise like a scream, and we took off. It was scary. We took off, and we saw some of Ben's friends. They were hauling ass out of there too. They had been at the lake noodling. If you don't know what that is, it's when a person finds a hole or sticks their arm under a rock and they hopefully pull out a catfish. They were doing that at the time when everything went crazy. We got behind them and they were blowing stop signs just like us. We went back the next day and that thing must have wreaked havoc on our campsite. Our ice chest was tore up, everything except the tents. For some reason, they did not tear up our tents at all. I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know if 2 of them came back or not. There was a lot of havoc at the campsite. Anyway, that's one of my encounters. I'm going to wait a little while and send you my next one. Take care of yourself. You're doing a wonderful thing by letting us get these encounters out in the open, and we don't have to feel like we're alone. Today's second subscriber submission. This is a update from a subscriber that I had on the show, and he had shared his encounter. Him and his brother in the late 80s, early 90s were hunting in Ohio, and they had shot and killed a dogman. Ohio DNR came out and really kind of silenced the whole experience. During the night, while they were waiting for transport for the creature, a DNR agent waited in his truck by the creature, ended up falling asleep. The creature's body was never recovered. So I'm pretty interested to see what this subscriber has to share with us now. Jeff, nothing's happened that I know of on the farm since our encounter in the late 80s, early 90s, but this year several things. Me and my great nephew he has went with me since he was young, having hunted since he was 9 or 10, and from that point we'll refer to him as my nephew. We go and check the trail cameras a lot during the summer and fall, so we are scouting and checking cameras in early October, and on the way to the woods we pass the farmer's equipment shed. As we're passing the shed, my nephew said, "Did you see that?" I said, "No." "What was it?" He said, "It looked like a huge dog or wolf, only it was on 2 legs when it jumped the fence." I slammed on the brakes and drove back to where he saw it run from the shed to the fence. Got out and looked for tracks, but saw none. Went to the shed and looked around and saw nothing unusual, so we continued. 2 weeks later, we're going to check the cameras, and we go past the same shed. My nephew says, "There it goes again." But all I saw was a dark streak, so we go and check the shed again. Nothing. Also, we are checking our cameras every 3 or 4 days now. Deer season comes, and we run out stands. First day in the woods are real quiet, no birds, squirrels. My nephew calls my phone at about 3 and says, "What is that on the road?" I look out at my neighbor's dirt road and there's a huge wolf, just like we encountered 30 years ago. It was all black, walking on all 4s, but walking very odd. From where I'm at to it is like 250 to 300 yards away. It stops and sniffs the air, looks my way and lets out a howl-like scream and continues to watch my way for 10 or 15 minutes. Then it turns and runs to the neighbor's woods. I had been watching it through binoculars this whole time, so I know what I was seeing. So I told my nephew, "Let's get out of here." Nephew asks all the way home what it was. I said, "Sure." I wasn't sure. So went to hunt the next day, but this time I took 2 .45 Colts and a .308 AR. Everything was quiet again, like the day before. So about 3, nephew calls and says, "There are 2 of those things on the road." So I look out to the road, and there are 2 this time. The black one and this gray one with black splotches. The black one sniffs the air and howls again while looking my way. Then both go to the woods. We sat there for about a half an hour. My nephew calls to say something is breaking limbs and making all sorts of racket in the woods behind him. So I tell him to stay put. I'm on my way. I get out of my stand with my .45 in hand, take my rifle off my shoulder, walking slowly to my nephew. I hear a lot of noise coming from the woods, but as I got closer, it stopped. Nephew got out of the stand and we hauled butt to the truck and haven't been back yet. One side note, talked to the neighbor farmer. He has 3 German Shepherd dogs. Said the dogs went crazy, wanting out a few nights before hunting season. Let them out and only 2 came back. Found it the next day, tore to shreds with its head missing. Found the head the next day on the sidewalk. Had another dog ripped up and had to take it to the vet a week ago. Now takes him out on a leash with a gun. Did you do Ohio, Dogman? Hope I didn't miss it yet. I'm going to have to get in touch with him and see if he wants to come on again and talk about the new stuff that's going on out there. Wow, that's crazy. Like I said, I wanted to do the state by states, and I've, been checking my email regularly, printing them out and putting them in the new folder. I'm kind of glad that I jumped onto that folder tonight. So, wow, cool. Today's 3rd subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, I'm not sure how to tell or start this. I still don't know what it was. So I work for the government as an inspector of mines, and I was working a case in Elko, Nevada. I was with another inspector on our way back to California with an overnight stop in Reno to drop another inspector off at the airport. Now we left Winmucca kind of earlier in the evening, maybe 7 p.m. or so. I was driving a Dodge Caravan, which is kind of relevant to the size comparison. I was driving for the entire trip, so I must admit I was tired. Anyway, we're on I-80 westbound toward Reno. I think I had been driving for 3.5 hours, so I'm not sure where we were exactly. My coworker had fallen asleep in the passenger seat, so unfortunately, I didn't have an eyewitness to back my story. Well, I was doing 70-75 on the 3-way when I caught what looked like a dog running down the freeway adjacent to the fast lane. This thing was big for a dog, and I remember thinking, there aren't any wolves in Nevada, are there? Well, as I overtook this thing, I could only see the back of the neck. It almost looked like it had no fur on its back, but had what would look like a tuft or a mane of hair, kind of like a hyena. The color of this thing was tan or light gray, and the mane was black. As I passed this thing, I got a glimpse of its ears. They were pointed, and they were black at the top, turning tan-colored, as far as the ears went. When I passed this thing, it was probably doing 65, and I barely passed it. I never saw its eyes or head as it was down like an animal would in a dead run. But when I passed this thing, its shoulders were even with my shoulder in the van. I'm 5'11". I passed this thing and I didn't see it anymore. I tapped the brakes trying to light it up, but I only saw it dart off the road into the desert. I don't know what I saw, but I know I was very creeped out with the WTF moment. And I was spooked. This thing was strange, big, and unbelievably fast. It must have been running 60 miles an hour. How is that possible? Well, I'm not sure what else to say. The whole encounter lasted 3 to 5 seconds, and I wish to this day I had swerved and killed it to try to figure out what it was. Anyway, have a good one. Thanks, Jeff. Tonight's 4th subscriber submission. This is another update from another subscriber who, if you guys remember, he and his buddy, they were driving in their van. Their van broke down. They were on their way to work, and they had to walk into town. When they were walking, they were trailed by a Dogman. He ended up grabbing a stick, and his buddy ended up running and leaving him alone in the middle of a wooded roadside. And he had his pretty terrifying encounter that day. This is another email from him. Hey Jeff, I had an encounter, like devil dogs or hellhounds. You don't have to put this on your channel if you don't want to, but I'll tell you about it. I had met this girl in town over from mine. Her name was, let's say, Tracy. When I met her, she was a cool chick. She was 17, I was 18. Her birthday was October 31st. Yup, Halloween. She claimed her and her ex-boyfriend were witches. I thought she was full of crap, but she had gotten pregnant and her ex beat her and they lost the baby. She got a letter one day saying her special power gift would be there on her birthday. Well, we went to Cherokee and stayed the night. And we had our fun, and afterwards, at about 3 in the morning, she sits straight up in bed and said, "We gotta go now, okay?" I was a little freaked out. No, I was a lot freaked out. She was like in a trance. When we got in my truck, I had forgotten to get gas. It was 20 miles to the open store that late. She said we'd make it. I just wanted away from her. And sure enough, we made it to the gas station. I ran out of gas when I pulled up to the pumps. Well, I got her home, and I was glad to be alone. Before I left her house, I rolled a joint. We smoked it. On my way home, I felt weird, like someone was watching me. I carried guns in my gun rack and pulled over and got out the shotgun. Nothing went around my truck. I thought I was paranoid. So I threw the joint out. But feeling never went away. Well, I made it home and crashed. Tracy called me early Saturday morning, her birthday, to come over, so I did. She was waiting for me. She hugged me and kissed me like everything was okay and nothing happened. But she made a comment that freaked me out. She said, "I made sure you got home safe that night." I asked her, "Safe? Safe from what?" She said, "Hellhounds." Chills went down my body. And I thought after that night I was done with her. Then the mail run. She got this box, and the return address said Salem, Virginia. She opened it, and it was a black diamond ring that fit her perfectly. I was like, so what? She claimed it gave her power. What did I get myself into? That night we went up to Robbinsville Mountain. It was a fire watchtower, long way up. We went up and smoked and fooled around. Then she starts again, saying they're here, let's go. She's screaming, freaking out, so I took off down the mountain. She lied, curled up, head on my lap, crying. She keeps saying they're behind us, they're after me. I yelled, "What is?" "The hellhounds, 3 black ones and a red one." I hadn't seen any dogs, but when I looked in my side mirror, I saw red eyes, 3 sets of them. And I almost ran off the mountain. I was scared. And then I saw something red streak up in the woods, but I couldn't tell if any of them were dogs, but the eyes stayed behind us. Then she screams, "Don't let it touch me." I'm yelling, freaking. "What? Don't let what touch you?" And where her legs were drawn up. She said her baby had lost was sitting on the seat beside her legs. She was shaking like a seizure. This is where I almost lost it. I put my hand on her leg trying to calm her down, and on the top of my hand it started burning like a hot poker had been laid on top of my hand. I jerked back, and we were at the bottom. Then I stopped. All the BS had stopped, and I caught my inside light on. And as I'm living now, a red mark was on the top of my hand, and it looked just like a baby's handprint. It was burnt for a while. I took her to her party, and she was sitting on the counter among a bunch of guys. I sat, finally snuck out the door, and left. She did a lot of crazy stuff after that, getting me and my friends in fights. But I was done with her. I saw her about a year ago, and she was still wearing that ring and married. Those were some crazy times. Tonight's final subscriber submission. Jeff, time for me to write my Australian Dogman encounters. My name is Bob. I am a retired industrial chemist and explosive tech trainer, regulator, and manufacturer. For the last few years, my wife and I have been gray nomads, traveling the country in a ute, Australian for pickup, and a small gooseneck caravan, mainly to different fishing spots. I am naturally skeptical of paranormal stuff, but I will listen to sensible evidence and find Bigfoot stories on YouTube very interesting, and some very believable. Along the way, I heard some Dogman stories and thought they had to be BS, but listening to interviews on your channel where the people sounded traumatized while telling their stories, I started to think there must be something to this. Not long after I met my Mrs. Linda, I was listening to your channel, and Linda says, I saw something like that in '99. She and her husband and their 7-year-old daughter Jess were driving around looking at Christmas lights at night. They were on a dirt road in farming country in the Mulgawe area of Queensland, which is an area where there have been sightings of the Mulgawe Yahweh. She saw what looked like a bloody big dog on the side of the road about 30 yards ahead, which stood up on its hind legs when the headlights hit it. As the car got closer, it dropped to all fours and ran alongside the car for a few seconds at 50 miles an hour, close enough for her to touch it if the window was down. It stopped. Then, as the car went past, it stood up again, which she saw by the lights of the taillight. While it was running, its back was higher than the windows, still on a Ford Falcon around 4 feet. It was at least 6 feet tall when standing. It reminded her of a muscular Rottweiler with a slender waist. It ran, or more accurately, loped, with the gait like a rabbit or hare, front legs moving together, then the rear moving together. Her husband at the time, a typical Aussie farmer, when she said, "What was that?" said it was just a dog. But he didn't see it as much as she did. She never mentioned it to anyone, thinking that her mind was playing tricks on her. Her being pregnant at the time, and people would think she was nuts. About a year ago, I was sitting out on the front porch of Jess's place, listening to your channel when Jess came out and asked what I was listening to. I explained. Then, bugger me dead, she said, "Remember that thing we saw that night on Mulgawe Road?" to her mom. She then described it to us exactly how Linda saw it, including it standing up in the glow of the taillights. Linda was floored, since she had never mentioned it to her, and didn't know that she had seen it too. She knew then she had not been imagining things or been mistaken. A couple of months ago, when we were traveling back to Gatton from one of my favorite fishing dams, we're about 10-15 minutes from the Crow's Nest on a 2-lane road with pine plantation on the right-hand side and farmland on the left. I had taken my eyes off the road for a couple of seconds to check my mirrors and gauges, and when I looked up I saw something upright, like a kangaroo, disappear into the long grass on the farmland side of the road. I only got a glimpse of its back, but the color was all wrong to be a roo. It was light brown with black patches, like a brindled dog. No kangaroo could move fast enough to cross the distance from the pines to the farm fence in 2 seconds top. I said, "What the hell was that?" Linda then said she only saw it from about halfway across the road, and it looked like a big dog running at a ridiculous speed on 2 legs. She described the coloration the same as what I saw, and its body shape was a bit like a greyhound, large chest, small waist, and 5 to 6 feet tall. It was so fast, she didn't even have time to say anything before it dropped onto all fours and disappeared into the long grass. I was absolutely convinced that I had gotten a glimpse of a dogman after spending most of my life in the bush. Not long after this, as we got close to the next town, there was a sign warning of wild dog baiting in the area. Linda's comment was, "What sort of dogs are they baiting?" They weren't bloody dogs, that's for sure. 3 times in my life I have had the get the hell out of here feeling in the bush, and either got out of there or stayed, but in my head on a swivel and not feeling comfortable. Yahwehs are one thing, but now I have seen one of those bloody upright dogs, and how fast they are, I won't be pushing my luck next time the little voice says, "Get out of there, something's wrong." All the best, Jeff. Keep up the good work educating the skeptics. it may save those poor bees' life someday. Dang, that was cool. Wow. I really enjoy all encounters, but for some reason I like Australian encounters. I don't know if it's because I want to go to Australia someday. I've been fascinated with Australia, and it's the land that anything can kill you. I mean, come on, you got to be fascinated with it. No, but for real, something about just the untamed wilderness out there. I'm imagining there are still things undiscovered by scientists that are out there. It's pretty crazy. Pretty cool. But yeah, so Australia, definitely a place I want to go to. Love to go to New Guinea as well. I'm pretty sure there's probably something out there. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just chewing the fat now. I'll just shut up. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for the upload being crappy with my voice. I think I've burnt myself out. I really do. I am completely exhausted. My throat hurts and I have a lot of phlegm in it. I don't know what the heck is going on. So I apologize. With that, thank you for listening and thank you for your support. Please practice kindness, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. Until later on tonight, my friends.